Welcome to the MLB Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by TheLines.com. I'm your host, Nate Weitzer, here joined by Midwest Mo Nawara. Josh Lander still reeling from his Mets after such a promising season, bowing out there in the wild card round. And we are continuing on after some wild card action into the LDS rounds here. Plenty of time on Monday to look over the series prices and game ones, which kick off on Tuesday. So we will go through all four series here. Make sure you like and subscribe to the page, as we will continue to bring you these playoff videos. Also bring you NBA and NFL content on this channel. So follow along at the Lines YouTube channel, and as well as all the written content we bring you on thelines.com. So jumping right into it, Mo. The action opens with Braves Phillies, NL East rivals, of course. That's a 12:07 tip here on Tuesday. For the series, Braves minus 185, Phillies plus 155. For game one, about this, we got Braves at minus 195, so slightly bigger favorites here, game one. You're seeing some big favorites across the board, as these wild card teams obviously are a little more gassed coming into this versus the teams that have rested on the bye. Total for game one is 6.5. I'm kind of interested in the over there at Turner Field, where the Braves averaged about 5 runs per game since the start of July. Braves going up against Ranger Suarez, who kind of shut them down in 3 straight after getting hit pretty hard his first 2 against Atlanta. This is a Braves lineup that's second in weighted runs created plus, and WOBA against lefties. They counter with a lefty as well, Max Fried, who's been about average against the Phillies in his career. He's 4-4, 3.75 ERA. Very reliable in the postseason. Reliable at home this season, 2.42 ERA. And then you look at, the Braves as a team, like I mentioned, almost 5 runs a game, 31-9 since July at home. Phillies are 20-23 on the road in that span. We're missing Bryce Harper for quite a bit there. There's a huge bullpen edge here for the Braves. So I don't think we love the minus 190 number in a playoff game, really, which you're seeing across the board, like I said. But for me, why not take the Braves to win game one and win the series? When you handicap those two together, then you're getting minus 110. I think they could stumble at some point against the Phillies. It could wind up being interesting once Nola and Wheeler get into the series, but I think there's no way that the Braves are going down against their division rivals over this 5-game series.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought, honestly, because I do have both of these lines pretty fair, but what does concern me from the Phillies end is Suarez. He's fine. Like, I have him like about a league average pitcher, but that's really good in June. But when it's October, you definitely want more than league average on the mound, obviously. And the fact that they probably have to start him twice if it goes 5 games, I think hurts them quite a bit. That said, the Braves do have a pretty big injury question as well with Spencer Strider. I think we talked about him on the other show. He was probably a top 3 pitcher in baseball this year. Just as good as DeGrom, basically, like step for step, and did it over a larger sample, I think. So, not having Strider, I think, would hurt the Braves some. I think they can definitely advance without him, but he's just so good. He'd probably be the best pitcher in the series, right? So without him, the Phillies have 2 of the 3 best pitchers in the series with Nola and Wheeler. I have Fried just as good as them. So I do think they're better than the rest of the Braves starters if Strider can't go, though. Braves, like you said, pretty big edge in the bullpen, pretty big edge on defense. I'm a little leery of fading the Braves game one for sure, because just having this bullpen come in rested and ready to roll, just a loaded Braves bullpen, it makes me a little nervous taking over as well. That being said, I do lean that way. I mean, 6.5 with even money both ways, and both of these teams were so strong hitting lefties this year. Braves were second, I think, for a lot of the year. They ended up sliding down to 5th, 118 WRC plus. That's really, really strong, though. Phillies are 6th, right behind them. So yeah, both of these teams hit lefties well, and then obviously the Braves have some left-handedness to their top of their bullpen as well. So could see a lot of lefties on the mound, and I would lean towards the over here. These offenses are just so good. I know that it's a park that has not been super easy to score in, and obviously Fried is a great pitcher and has proven he's not going to let the postseason, pressure get to him at all. So this is small potatoes compared to some of the games he's been in. But I do lean a little bit to the over here, yeah.
Yeah, and I think the second game we're going to talk about here, Astros hosting the Mariners, I think you got to lean under, if anything, with Verlander and Logan Gilbert going head-to-head here. Obviously, the postseason debut for young Mr. Gilbert, but he was pretty incredible all season and handled the Astros 2-1, 2.52 ERA in 5 meetings. On the road, he went 8-1, 3.16 ERA. The Astros here, big favorites in game one, minus 210. Same thing for the series, basically minus 220, as they're well rested, have their 2 aces lined up with Verlander followed by Framber here. I'm interested in the Astros winning, if they're going to win this series, to do it in 4 games or fewer, and that's plus 115. Again, it's better to bet game 1 win and the series than just to bet game 1 at even money. But these Mariners have been tough to figure out as they come into the postseason kind of playing with house money. Now they get their big brothers who they did struggle against in the division, I think losing 6 of the last 7. But that's the kind of thing we see in the postseason where all of a sudden that flips if the tide starts to turn. Intriguing price for Houston to win game 1 with Verlander, who's just a completely different guy than we saw at the last time he was in the postseason, where he actually lost 4 of his last 5 starts. But this season, just out of this world numbers. Handled Seattle 3-0 with a 1.69 ERA at home against Seattle. He had that one blow up in Seattle, but was excellent against this lineup and just great career numbers across the board. So I think I lean towards Astros and them taking the series at even money, but plus 750 for it to flip the other way after they win this first one. I could see how you make a compelling argument to go that route.
Yeah, I took a little bit of Mariners series, plus 185, I think. It's a little high for me. I don't want to fade Verlander because he's punished me all year. But that being said, I still think he's not near as good as his numbers. His estimators are definitely closer to like a 3 ERA than kind of the, 2-ish ERA he's been putting up all season. I'm a little disappointed that Seattle is going with Gilbert in game 1. I was hoping they would go with George Kirby. I know he closed the other day, but I think that was his throw day. So I think he would have been able to start today, or tomorrow, rather.
Well, nothing official yet. I mean, we haven't seen Gilbert listed, but that's what we think it's going to be, yeah.
He's just on there on the odds boards. I know that you said he had some success against the Astros, but I don't think he profiles well against the Astros. It looks like a pretty tough matchup for him to me. He's so slider fastball heavy. And the Astros are so good against sliders and fastballs. I think this is kind of similar to the other series that we just talked about. Kind of the same issue where I think having Gilbert go twice, if that's what they go with, is going to hurt them here. Verlander should do very well. I'm less sure about Framber against the Mariners. I think that the Mariners match up decent with him. They are quite good hitting lefties. Surprisingly, I guess when I look at this lineup, I don't think they should be a very great lineup against lefties. They've been pretty good though. They also are very good at elevating the baseball and hitting sinkers. And that's key against Framber. If you are going to pound it into the ground, then you're in a lot of trouble against this guy. I'm really interested to see what Houston does with their rotation. They have a bunch of very similar pitchers after Framber and Verlander, guys who are kind of probably around a 3.5-ish ERA true talent level, something like 3.3 5 to 3.8, that type of just like solid average, slightly above average pitchers. I'm wondering if they're going to go with like some piggyback systems with some of these guys where, they each throw like 3-4 innings. I think the pitching overall in this series is pretty close though. The Astros obviously have the better bats. They have the better defense, but we know how dynamic Seattle's pen is. I think it's just as good as Houston's. It might even be a little better. And man, I think the energy in those Seattle games, the home games, is going to be absolutely bonkers once they get some home games going. So definitely excited to watch this one. I took a little Seattle, but not super excited about it. But I do think the line is a little bit too high. I mean, Seattle is a really good team.
Yeah, we talked in the Futures episode about fading the Astros and the Dodgers as those heavy favorites in both league. I think we're both still a little scared of it just because of how good the Astros have been at winning these low-scoring games. For me, that's, again, why I think I lean under in the first one here with Verlander on the mound. But switching it over here to the East Coast where the Yankees host the Guardians. This one, another similar line to the series. We got game one, Yanks minus 205. They're minus 210 for the series. Guardians getting plus 175 to both win game one or win the series. Total is 7 here. I think I feel best about the over at Yankee Stadium here. Garrett Cole has just not been lights out really at any point this season. The peripheral stats are pretty good, but he just doesn't have a feel, it seems, for when to throw what. I mean, put some of that on catching, managing, whatever you want. He's got a 3.8 ERA since August, 4-5 in that span. He did pitch well against Cleveland much earlier this season. In the second half, the Guardians have the lowest K rate, so they're going to make him work. Their even home road split's actually slightly better on the road in terms of those Ks and average. And they're throwing Cal Quantrill here, the sinker baller, who's just been a rock for them during the end of this season. 6-0 his last 9, 2.3 ERA, allowed only 4 homers over 50.1 innings. And the Yankees have struggled a bit against cutters, against sliders. I wonder if Quantrill can take advantage of that. He's only started once in his career against this Yankees lineup, but I don't have a whole lot of faith in the Yankees. I think at this price, I would rather go Cleveland, which we talked about them or the Rays kind of emerging from this next series because of that bullpen edge. Now, Aroldis Chapman is going to just be left off the roster for some team discipline. So, I mean, big bullpen edge again to Cleveland. And if the Yankees don't outslug them, then I favor the Guardians to win this close game.
Yeah, I actually like Cleveland a little bit. I've been like the low man on Cleveland. I think the series price is like not that interesting. I think it's pretty fair. I do think Cleveland is a little. I like them a little in game one. I think I got some plus 190. I want to say is what I got a little bit ago. I just can't even believe we're talking about Cal Quantrill starting game one of a divisional series. But that being said, I do think Garrett Cole, he just relies so much on strikeouts, right? And Cleveland just doesn't strike out. And when you look at what Cole is allowing on contact, 9.5% barrels, I mean, that's been a problem for him the last few years. And if he's going to allow contact, which everyone pretty much does against Cleveland, right? Some of it's probably going to be pretty hard contact. I mean, that's a below average number, 9.5%. Like his career mark is 6.6, and that's I think closer to the league average. So, I think a high strikeout relying pitcher here, with Cleveland's bullpen coming in after a couple days off, where they can come in fully loaded, is when I'm most interested in Cleveland because their bullpen has been so strong, and the Yankees bullpen does definitely look weak to me right now. I mean, we talked about that in the preview, just all the injuries they've had, and now add Chapman to the mix, just being a buffoon or whatever's going on there, missing team workouts. I like Cleveland a little bit game one. I know that it's not exciting to click on Cal Quantrill against Garrett Cole, but I think he's a little underpriced here.
That's why you're getting all that juice. Yeah, and some name recognition, and we saw what Cleveland was able to do really towards the whole second last 2 months of the season there, just exceeding expectations and rolling that right through in the wild card round. Incredible 15.1 scoreless innings from their bullpen in those 2 games to beat the Rays. So looking at the last one here, Dodgers for the series are minus 210 against the Padres, but game 1 minus 215 versus the Pods here. We don't know if it's going to be Urish or Clayton Kershaw. Yeah, Dave Roberts basically said, it doesn't matter. They're both lefties. We'll throw it out there, whatever that does for gamesmanship. We do think that the Dodgers have a big advantage in this series because 3 of their 4 starters are going to be lefties, it seems. And the Padres, their big acquisitions, of course, Juan Soto, Josh Bell, just okay against lefties, not super dangerous, and that's what kind of vaulted them past the Mets here. Huge numbers. Again, big brother in the division. Dodgers 26-12 versus the Pods since last year. So that's heavy favorites as we expect here. For me, though, I think something will give. I think, you look at the Mariners pulling it out as the series progresses. I'm kind of interested in Dodgers game 1, Padres series at plus 900. I think Mike Clevenger has been pretty shaky in his meetings with the Dodgers on the road this season and in his one postseason appearance with the Padres. So I definitely favor the Dodgers, whether it's Kershaw or Urias. I think they have the edge in game 1, but I think the Padres, once they start to get Darvish back, who looked fantastic, Blake Snell still capable of some good things. I think that they could pull this out and at least make it a 5-game series. Interested in the number for that. And I think with the juice you get for them to actually come back and win this thing, we've seen crazier things happen in baseball. I think that it might be that the Pods having their day here and finally getting past their big brothers.
Yeah, it's a tough matchup for them in a few ways. Obviously, because of the lefties. That's kind of the big thing that I'm worried about when it comes to the Padres. Dodgers just should have, it looks like probably 3 lefties out of their 4 starters. Really the most interesting matchup to me is going to be when, speaking of lefties, when Blake Snell comes up and throws against the Dodgers. Obviously, he's been kind of on fire second half of the season, but I think he had 6 walks in that first game he pitched in the playoffs. And while the Dodgers are also a bit weaker against lefties, they're also tremendously disciplined in general. I think they led the league in outside the zone swing rate. So Snell basically lives outside the zone. So it's really kind of some give and take there in that particular matchup. I'm also a little worried about Tony Gonsolin for the Dodgers. I know they're lining him up to start, but we're looking at one start for 2 innings and 1 tune-up start in the minors for 2 innings. So I really don't know what he's bringing to the table in this series. His velocity was normal when he came back, but it's also hard to say what that means when he only went 2 innings. I mean, maybe he's just pumping it up, for a shorter outing. I don't know if they're going to piggyback him with Heaney. I think it would be good. You have a slider-heavy lefty and a change-up-heavy righty, so that's kind of a nice little contrast, which is kind of what you want when you have a piggyback starter. I think the Dodgers do look notably weak in the bullpen here, with Craig Kimbrell really struggling. Doesn't sound good for Blake Trinan to come back. So I do think the Pods have an edge in the bullpen. They have the better defense, I believe, as well. So I lean a little bit to the Pods for the series. I didn't play it. I did take the Pods game 1. We're not sure really who the Dodgers are going to throw, but I can only assume it's going to be either Urias or Kershaw. I would guess they're going to give Kershaw the ball, but neither one would surprise me in the least. It seems a little high. You can get plus 185 actually at DraftKings right now. I think that's good. The Dodgers they're better than the Padres, but obviously the Padres didn't play as well as they should have on paper. But on paper, this team matches up reasonably well, man for man with the Dodgers. I mean, they have a great team-wide talent level. So if they play as good as their roster is capable of playing, I don't think they should be plus 185 underdogs here. So it took a little game one there. Not quite enough for me to play the series, but I'm interested in a little bit just because of the uncertainty around the Dodgers' arms, both in the pen and in the staff.
Yeah, they're not minus 210 better than this Padres team. I think we agree. And it'll be interesting to see how this plays out with the bye weeks being the first time. Is there like a rust factor that you talk about in baseball? I mean, like a little rest is good, but especially a team like the Dodgers that's been coasting for weeks now, now getting into some high leverage at bats. Are they not as ready for that as the Padres? We will see. That is all the time we have for you today. We will be back on Wednesday to break down some of these game ones and look ahead at the next part of these series. Please like and subscribe to the page as you won't miss an episode the rest of the season. And until we see you next, happy betting.